Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Amicable Divorce Network presentation of how to use artificial intelligence and specifically ChatGPT in your legal practice. My name is Tracy Ann Moore Grant, and I am the founder of the Amicable Divorce Network. And we are very proud today to offer this very interesting and innovative content. I've seen everybody talking about this online, how you can use it, how the courts are going to treat it, all sorts of different topics that are related to this really new and emerging area. So we are so happy to be presenting this today and hopefully get some of your questions answered. Our presenter today is Lindsay Kennedy, and Lindsay runs Legal Reinforcements, which is a business that connects law firms with military spouses to work as remote legal assistants, paralegals, and attorneys. She's also a freelance attorney doing ghostwriting for attorneys on a wide range of civil litigation cases. Having worked with so many law firms and helped train so many support staff members, she knows firsthand the pain points on both sides. Her computer science background has led her to explore the many ways technology can help run a law firm. Personally, she is a military spouse and mother and lived overseas for 6 of the last 12 years. So Lindsay, I'm so happy to have seen you post about this topic, and I jumped in and was like, we need to hear more. Is there anything else you want to say about yourself or this topic before we get started?
No, I think we can just jump right in. The topic kind of speaks for itself at this point.
I think everybody's really interested. So remember, put your questions in the chat and we will monitor that. And at the end, we will turn off the recording and have some Q&A that's not on the camera. If you're a little shy about being on camera, you'll have that opportunity. But I will turn it over to you, Lindsay.
Perfect. So I've shared my screen. So if you're looking at the kind of Brady Bunch view of everyone, you're not going to be able to read my little box. So what you're going to need to do is change your view on the Zoom so that I'm the biggest one right there. And so what you do is, to get started, this presentation is focused on someone who has never used ChatGPT or has used it and just doesn't understand, like ineffectively, tried to use it and failed, basically. So those are the two. If you're an avid user and you're trying to just get more tips and tricks, you may be a little disappointed because this is starting at an entry level presentation. So I started to put it together. This is what it looks like when you first log in. It's chat.openai.com. And the first time you log in, you're going to have to give them your email and a password and then verify your email and that sort of thing. And it can take, depending on how busy the software functionality is, it might take a little bit of time before you get that verification email. But overall, the process usually takes about 2 minutes. So then, like any other website, you log into it, and then this is what you see. I've made mine a little bit larger here, so hopefully you can read it a little bit better, but this is it. Over here on the side, these can be used as templates. These are conversations, past conversations I've had with ChatGPT. What you can do too is, as you do them, and you can use them over and over again as templates. But what you can also do is you can click on it, and where'd it go? And then right here, I can throw it away. So I can get rid of it so that this doesn't get bombarded with the stuff, the one-off stuff, and I can focus on keeping it. So you hit the delete, and then you have to hit the check mark to then get rid of it. So that way you can keep your templates that you want to use over and over again and get rid of the ones that are just for one-off. Right here is where you type, and you're going to type in your prompt. And the prompt is the most important part. I mean, that's how you're communicating with ChatGPT. That's the hardest part to get right. So I was thinking, well, what are tips that I can give? And I started making my list as to what tips I can give people on doing a good prompt. And then I remembered, well, we'll just ask ChatGPT to do the work. And so here it gives, and you can see I did it last night too. It gives really good information, and this is about the speed that it writes. So a lot of this presentation is going to be just me letting it do its thing. So there's going to be a lot of dead air, silence during the presentation while we all read. But this is actually very, when I made my list, I compared it to their list. And theirs is actually a little bit better, but it is missing one thing. And we'll go into that. But first, be clear and specific, proper grammar and punctuation. That's funny because that one wasn't there last night. Provide context. What is it you want them to know about what you're doing? And then to be respectful to the robot and keep it concise. So this is interesting. I just did the same exact prompt last night, and you can see right here is it. And it's last night's I think was actually a little better. So that's interesting. Be specific, concise, include context, ask open-ended questions, consider your audience, avoid bias because you want to be neutral and let the robot provide its corrected answer. But the most important thing is to let it know, I only have it do drafting for me. It'll be the first draft that I start with, and then I move on from there. Let it know what it's drafting it for and the relevant information behind it. I saw a few people have stated that treat ChatGPT as if it's your legal assistant who's really smart and really eager to help, but who doesn't really know a whole lot of things. And so once you're talking to someone like that, I consider it talking to, say a 20-year-old who's really smart and dedicated to help you, but you have to provide a lot more information to them to make sure you get an output that's useful. So those are tips for doing the prompts correctly. So now we're going to go, because we're attorneys, we always want to go to the doom and gloom. Why is this a bad thing? That's always what we want to go to first. So I'm just copy and pasting my my agenda for it right here. Confidentiality. You have to remember that this is not encrypted messages that you're putting in. And in fact, there are humans on the other side of GPT. So what you want to do is make sure that you're not putting anything that's confidential into the chat function. The chances of them keeping in mind are very slim, given that millions are using this product and typing in millions of prompts each day. And the humans are not reviewing every single thing, but they can. So as attorneys, we have to make sure we maintain confidentiality. And undoubtedly, you've probably heard about the Samsung issue where Samsung executives were putting in trademark secrets into the feature to help draft a internal presentation that they were doing. And then Samsung ultimately banned ChatGPT from being used by its workers. GPT. I'm always going to say GPT, but there was actually no indication that the trade secret got out to its competitors. So we do want to keep that distinction. They used it in a way that was effective for them. However, it was a risk. It was a risk that didn't come to fruition, but a risk nonetheless. And so a lot of these big corporations are banning the use of this functionality. Next, we want to talk about the trademark, copyright, IP protection. So when this is outputting the information, you cannot have copyright protection on it unless you alter it enough. Now, what is enough is going to be heavily dependent on, IP litigation, and that's what a lot of IP litigation is on. So you definitely don't want to take it directly and then try to, put the little R circle on it and try to claim this is yours to have copyright protection. But you can
getting a couple of questions about the free versus the paid version. I'm not sure if you know anything about the differences. One is, what is the difference between the free and paid version? And do you get any IP protection with the paid version? I'm going to assume no, because it's
so anytime a computer is drafting something for you, is creating it for you. And this has long been the case with IP law. The computers have been creating artwork for decades now. There's no IP protection for that, regardless of whether it's paid or not. So know that the difference is the ChatGPT paid version is $20 a month. Last I checked, which I think was last week. And the difference is it's more intuitive. It's, a step forward with the way it can sort of understand what you're talking about. But it doesn't have any other IP. The terms and conditions from the chat says that they're giving you all the protection, they're giving you everything they have, but it's still a computer generating it. So they can't give you something that doesn't exist, obviously. So you just want to keep that in mind, that if you want to have copyright protection on whatever it is, that you alter it enough to then be able to claim it. Then you also want to keep in mind, there's been some rumors that it could create something that is someone else's copyright protection. It's less of a risk because this is a computer generating it. It's not just going around the internet and pulling stuff, but it is actually like compiling it and creating it. So the chances of it creating something that has already got copyright protection on it is slim, but it could happen. So you do want to be aware of that. There's various plagiarism software, especially ones that have come out directly about this program. So you can always run your stuff through that, and you just type in Google plagiarism software. But this is one that all the college professors are talking about using, the zero GPT, so that they're checking their college kids' papers to see if they used this function to create their papers. So that's a neat one if you wanted to see if when you create it and then you alter it, how much it pops up as being generated from the actual software. And if you want to put it through that and then the other plagiarism softwares to see what comes up in terms of flagging it for that sort of thing. Did I answer that question, Tracy?
I believe so. I don't see any more questions on that. Thanks.
Okay, good. Now also you want to keep in mind, this isn't LexisNexis. You can ask it the case law for it, but it is known for just completely making up case law. And anytime it has a gap in understanding, it will just make up an answer. Not too unlike an 18-year-old kid who's just trying to please you and makes up an answer. So you do want to keep that in mind and not use it as your research tool, but use it for the drafting tool that it is. Indemnification is an interesting one. This is also an extremely low level risk, but it's something to be cognizant of. If I take ChatGPT and I use it, and then a third party sues me because I used it, and then they also sue ChatGPT, I have to indemnify ChatGPT for that. So none of the things I'm going to show you to use it for today would elicit or likely elicit any sort of lawsuit. Most of it's very internal, but it's something to be aware of. And I see that much more there's a lot of businesses popping up where they're taking this functionality, this AI machine, and layering their own, like the templates on the side here, and then marketing those. And in those cases, it could cause some sort of malpractice suit of some sort, something along those lines. And then those companies then would have to indemnify ChatGPT. So, but it's just something to keep in mind depending on what your use is for it. If you stick to kind of the things that I show you today, there's not really much of a risk, but we'll go from there. So the last part of my doom and gloom before I put in some more prompts to show you is the love and hate relationship that you're likely to go through with ChatGPT, because it's what everybody goes through. So you start out the first time you use it and you're like, oh my gosh, this is the most amazing thing ever. And then you keep using it and the roller coaster goes down and you say, well, this isn't as great as I thought. And then the roller coaster gets to the bottom of the hill and you're like, this is stupid. It's making up stuff. And then you kind of go up a little, using it a little bit more, and you're like, oh, okay, so this is a useful tool, but it's not replacing a human being. And hopefully by the end of this presentation, you can just skip the roller coaster and start right at the end and understand where it fits in your life and functionality. So the very first thing I'm going to start with is marketing for your law firm, or marketing for whatever you're wanting to market. Like, for example, I market the recruiting business that I have. And what you want to do, and that's a great way to use it for and easy. So I'm having it draft a blog stating that a person should hire the Lindsay Kennedy law firm, which doesn't exist. I don't have the Lindsay Kennedy law firm, but I'm saying it's an Amicable Divorce Network family law firm because that's who this presentation is through. And you can draft it your prompt directly in the box, or you can draft it somewhere else and then copy and paste it. And so here I've got a really good blog, a good start. I might have to tweak it a little bit, but otherwise it's going to go, it could go on my fake law firm website. And that's got a lot of SEO terms, when people are Googling about divorce, that will help my business get potential clients. So I draft that, and then I'm going to stay with this same chat, because I've now already explained what my law firm is and what it does and given information. And I'm going to have it draft 5 social media posts to go with this blog. And I like how the posts especially focus on the amicable component of it and are eliciting and garnering those types of potential clients. And it even gives me the hashtags to include because it knows it's a social media post. And so as putting this together, we all know that social media posts have to have a picture to do better. So I'm going to ask it, what picture should I put with each one? And it gives me the caveat that it can't just give me the pictures, but it'll describe the pictures that it thinks will best fit with each of the above social media posts.
If you have Canva, you can just go search for those pictures.
Mm-hmm. And then I like this one. So say I wanted to do 5 funny social media posts to promote the same law firm. So I do that, and let's see if it gives me the same message it did yesterday. There it is. Yeah. It is important to note that humor is subjective and should be used very carefully. So actually in another one last night, it said, you don't want to use it specifically for divorce. So I thought that was interesting that the AI recognized that the caveat that you should be careful using humor with it when it comes to divorce.
So Lindsay, where is it pulling this content from? I assume the entire internet. Are there any other sources that it gains its knowledge from?
So it's not actually pulling it from the internet. It's read the internet up to 2021. That's when it stopped reading the internet. And it's actually learned the language and how to put words together to answer the question. So it's no longer searching the internet and just pulling it, because if it were, there would be a high risk that it's pulling copywritten information and just regurgitating it to you. And that's not what it's doing. It's actually, it says AI, it's artificial intelligence, where it's taking your prompt and generating the answer. And that's why even when I'm putting it in today compared to when I was putting in the exact same prompt last night, I'm getting different responses. Now they're in the same ballpark. They're very, very similar, but they're not verbatim the same words.
So if all of us took your prompts from today and
Mm-hmm.
we all did these steps for our law firm, are we all going to get a similar result, or will it use information that's different about our law firms to create the answers?
If you solely use my prompts and don't have anything else in the chat box, you'll get very similar answers than what I'm providing. However, if you were to say if you provided it different information above, like you trained it differently above about your law firm, about you, say you throw your bio in one of these prompts and you fed it more information and then use my same prompts, you would get starkly different responses. Does that make sense?
It does. And one thing, and maybe you're going to touch on this, if you are, please let me know. I've used this to write blog posts for the Amicable Divorce Network, because as we all know, that can be time consuming and expensive. And it would ask me, did I like the response at the end? And sometimes I didn't. And I would explain why. And then when I did the prompt the next time, it would correct and update for my needs. So you can train it for yourself, correct?
Yeah, exactly. That's absolutely right. And so say we've got this, it's always got this regenerate response button. You can just click it, or you can write, flat out, I didn't like these, do more. You know, I didn't even have to use full sentences. I didn't have to say, and it gives you the nice little apology. And then it gives 5 more. And I could have, like I said, just clicked on the regenerate and it'll do it again. So it's very interesting that I love that it apologizes so profusely. I think that's just a hilarious programming feature of it. And so then it gives you the 5 more. And so I saw someone else talk about needing to draft a email to past and present clients that their law firm was going virtual. And I thought, well, that's the perfect thing to use ChatGPT for. So I'm actually going to use this same chat. I'm going to stick with the same one because I've already explained what my fake law firm is and what it does and got information about it and fed it information. If I wanted to do something completely unrelated to my law firm, I would do a new chat. So, but I'm going to stick with this so that it already has that information and I don't have to re-explain any of that and have it draft an email to present and past clients that my fake law firm is going virtual in August. And so this is kind of fun because I did the same thing last night with the same previous prompts above it, with the one exception of the prompt that we just initiated with, I didn't like these, do more. So that was the only difference in the entire conversation having with the robot there. And I got a very different email. Both are good and both are promoting it in a positive light that we're, switching to a virtual law firm. But the other one was more a list. I'd have to find it, but it was more 1, 2, 3. These are the reasons why it's a good thing. And so I like this narrative form better that it did this time. But you could always regenerate the response and it might give the exact same one it did last night. And so now the dreaded email that we always have to write. Draft an email to a client regarding an overdue invoice. Make the email polite but firm. And I have to scroll down once the conversation starts to get too long, you actually have to use your mouse and scroll down to get it to go. So if you do it and you're like, wait, where did it go? You want to actually just use the scroll button or scroll down over here to make sure you're grabbing the data. And so I like that they did this. Now you can also, and I specifically said, make this email polite but firm. I could also say redo more aggressively.
And maybe this is the version that you do for your own entertainment and keep inside your heart.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Or it's a client you're really hoping will fire you, so you give them this version. So these are more of the client notifications and the marketing type things you can use for it. Now I'm going to switch. Go ahead.
Does the program work in different languages? Was a question.
I only speak English, so I've only tried it in English, but I have read that it does translate in other languages and it can evaluate translations and all of that. But I haven't personally used it to know how effective that is, but it does say that it can, yes. This is a good question. So now we're going to switch to internal documents within your law firm. So I'm going to open a whole new chat because I don't want it to have that past information. But I'm going to have it do an employee evaluation. And so I'm going to have it do an employee evaluation of Lena Smith. I am saying that she's excelled at these things. I'm just providing a running list, but she needs to continue improvement on learning about the legal profession and how to give advice on resume drafting. So I click on it and it gives me an employee evaluation as if I'm sending it to someone else, like her HR director or someone along those lines. In particular, I meant, and I did this on purpose, to send it to her directly. And so I'm going to have it revise and address it directly to her and it make it more of a narrative. So I'm now describing better of what I want. So what it gave me is good information, but it's not for the purpose that I need. So I'm just having a conversation with it to tell it, okay, let's try again, but let's refocus it in this way. And then the nice thing is I have this fantastic email, and instead of drafting it from scratch, which would probably take me about 30 to 40 minutes, it takes me about 2 minutes to fix this.
So I think, probably the elephant in the room is using this on legal documents.
Yeah, I'm getting to that. I promise.
Well, I won't
I
jump.
promise. I'm doing the
jump your
easy ones
topics
first, but
No,
yes,
I
I'm going to
think-
go through it. Yes.
Yes, no, this has been really, if you have to write difficult emails to people, it is really nice.
Yes. Yeah, I had to write one to my kid's teacher and I was angry. So I wrote out the email and put it in this and said, make this nice and polite and friendly. And it zapped it right away for me. So I didn't have to.
And if you have to fire anybody or break up with somebody, it is very, very well worded and gentle.
Yes, I do.
It might pave the way for an amicable divorce.
Yeah, yeah, you could recommend it. Like you can have an amicable divorce too. Break up with your husband this way. So it's very important that every law firm has an operating procedures manual, but most don't, I have found. So what you want to do is use this to create one, and you can actually assign it to your legal assistant to create one. I have a legal assistant, or I have my assistant, and she's very intelligent and awesome, but she had never had to write professional emails before. So I used it to, not for family law cases, for our recruiting business, but I had it draft a checklist for drafting an email. And it was great because she could take this and know to put right away. This is also very helpful for those with neurological components, and they could say it's a checklist. I can write an email that follows, do this sentence, do this sentence, do this sentence. And you can put it through. And then I even had her take her emails that she drafted and put it into the chat and set into it as a prompt and say, make more professional, and then take the output. And she did that for about 2 or 3 days. And then she could see the difference between the email she was drafting and how to make it sound more professional. And it needed, like I said, it makes up stuff. So we had to be very careful with it because we put in our, say a person we recommend to this law firm. We're saying, we think, Jana is a great fit for your law firm because, and the information about Jana. Well, the problem was it then said she was amazing at writing. And if we didn't catch it, we didn't say she was amazing at writing in our prompt, but it added that in. And so we had to catch it and be sure it was clearly defining her skill set and not overselling. So you do want to be careful of that. And then another one, if you have like a new person in your law firm and they've not worked family law, you can do what is the draft the typical progression of a divorce case. And it gave a really good output of just, the different steps that it happens to someone new instead of you trying to spend 30 minutes explaining it. And then you can do this. And then I thought for the discovery stage, it didn't do nearly as much detail as needed. So you can always say to it, add a little more detail to that. But I'm going to say, oh, you know what? This checklist or this list of the progression of a divorce would actually make a good blog. After it gave the output, I thought, I'm going to tell it to do that. And so then it creates a blog that can go great on your website. And it's got great SEO because it's all the terms that people are researching when they're looking for doing a divorce and popping right up. Now, as I said, with the discovery, and this output, especially if you have a newer legal assistant who doesn't have a plethora of experience in family law, I'll let it finish. And then I'm going to have it tell me, provide a detailed list of the documents needed to complete discovery. And I'm leaving it without saying it's in a family law case or anything like that, because this chat has already, this conversation has already been going on to let it know that's what we're talking about. So it's just a continuation of this same conversation. If I was starting a new one and I put this in, I would get a starkly different answer, and it wouldn't be geared towards family law. And the truth is, most family law websites that I've looked at has a post very similar to this. So I can't imagine any of them care too much about the copyright protection component of this, given that most of the family law attorneys have something very comparable. But to each their own. Certainly, if you don't want to see your written work regenerated somewhere else, then of course, you want to make sure you tweak it enough to where you can claim copyright protection. So it's going to give the series of documents that we're expecting to get from a potential client or from a client during a divorce proceeding. And it's a good starting list. It's not by all means inclusive of everything that's needed, but it's a great starting list, especially to explain to a legal assistant, or even turn this into a blog, the type of records and information you're expected to give to your attorney. If you are providing that at the beginning of the case, and then you get into more detail with their unique needs of their case, but it's a good starting point. You're not going to necessarily use only this as your guide to how to be a lawyer for a family law case, but it's definitely a good starting point. And this one's interesting. It actually included W-2s and employment records. The last time I did this, it left that off, and I thought that was funny that it left off. So you do have to look at it a couple times. And so last, we'll do one more internal document, draft a standard operating procedure for my law firm for updating a client about their divorce case. So we did the email, how to draft a professional email, and then the standard operating procedure for updating a client about their divorce case. And I made sure to clarify that it's a standard operating procedure, so it's a checklist, and then I can give that to my legal assistant to be able to do these. And then with the regular communication, you can take the checklist of how to do an email and incorporate that under this to include how to do it. And then, of course, you can tweak it and you can provide it more information. So this says, determine the best method of communication in your law firm. You most likely have a policy on the way you're going to provide that, probably email. And then on the occasional, phone calls or meetings, you can clarify that to this, but you can either fix it offline yourself, or you can clarify it to the system, and then it'll redraft these based on your internal means of communications and how you want things, how your procedure's done. So getting to the fun stuff, the legal briefs, I'm going to show you. We're going to open a new chat because this is going to be stop generating, and turn the following facts into a narrative form and do not make up any facts. Especially when you're writing a legal brief, you want to clarify, do not make up any facts. Of course, you're going to do your due diligence. You're going to review it. You're going to make sure what you're inputting and filing with the court is accurate, but this will help make it easier for you by adding in, do not make up any facts. Now, I've called it a narrative form, and I've provided a contract situation. I just took my fake notes and said, on June 3rd, John and Laura discussed John paying Laura $35K to install a new sound system into John's aircraft. John paid Laura, and I wanted to include some, PD, and I think I spelled something. Yeah, I spelled sound system wrong here on purpose. I wanted to show you that these are just quick notes that you can just throw in. So Laura has installed many sound systems. She attempted install, but due to aircraft current tech, she was not able to provide the work, and that the only system that would work would cost an additional $10K. John did not want to pay that, and he filed the lawsuit against Laura, demanding that she do the install at the agreed price. And she sued for breach of contract and unjust enrichment. And so what I get is a good starting point for the narrative of the motion or whatever briefing I'm writing. It's a great starting point for it. Now, because in this scenario, John has already filed the lawsuit, this is all information that's in the complaint, presumably. So there's really not much of an issue with confidentiality since it's already been filed in the public domain. But you can decide from reading it, if something isn't there, chances are in the complaint, it doesn't say, Laura tried her best to do it, but the blaming the aircraft as being, the plaintiff doesn't usually give that kind of credit to the defense. So that gives that. But I want to take it and I want to show you ways to improve it. I'm going to again open up a different chat. And I'm going to say, turn the following facts into narrative form and do not make up any facts for a statement of facts in a brief. So now I've added what it's being used for, but it's the exact same facts. And what I get is a little bit better of an output because it actually understands the statement of facts in a legal brief and what that entails. So it's a little bit better of a output because I'm providing a little bit better of an input. So I'm going to show you some things that it doesn't do well. Say I ask it now, what are the elements for a breach of contract? So it gives me some good data, good information. Of course, it's not giving me any sort of case law or any of that. But if it's an area of law that you don't regularly practice and your brain's just not working, it's a little bit better than Google, and it gives you a good starting point. So if it's an area of law you don't do and you just need a quick refresher, that's where this comes in very handy. So now, again, I'm going to show you something that's not super effective, but it's the way a lot of attorneys are using it, and that's why they're complaining it's not working well, is draft the analysis of a brief using the previous facts and apply them to the elements for a motion for summary judgment brief. So now it's going to take the facts I previously gave and these elements of a breach of contract and analyze them and put them together. And in my opinion, it gives me the intro, it gives me the statement of facts, and it goes through quite a bit of detail. But overall, the analysis isn't going to be very thorough and very good. But I'm going to show you how to do it much better. And I didn't tell what side I was on, even though I thought it was clear that I was on Laura's side. And it's saying, yeah, John deserves to win, which is obviously not what I would want as Laura's attorney. Okay, so I'm going to open a new chat. And I'm going to start off by training it in the same way. And I'm going to have it do the same one where it's turn this into a statement of facts in a brief. Okay, so it's generating that same pretty good starting point for the statement of facts component of it. And then this is where we get to the fun. Now go ahead and paste it in. So then I went to my handy dandy Alexa subscription and I grabbed the case law. I used Florida for this analysis, and I grabbed the elements of a breach of contract, and then I grabbed the impracticality of performance case law, and I threw that in. And so being able to just include what the case law is. Then I'm telling it The applicable case law says the following: apply these facts to the case law for the analysis section of the brief. And then it actually gives me a really decent starting point, I think, or did last night. We'll see if today's is just as good. And of course, it needs work. It's not the best, but it's a little better than what I would give to like a legal assistant to do a template. Now, obviously, if you've got a stellar paralegal, there's a lot of paralegals that are basically attorneys, except without the being able to show up to court or sign documents. They're going to do a little bit better job on the first go. But if someone has an entry-level paralegal, or if they're a skilled legal assistant putting together the template for you to start with, this helps to give you a starting point for it.
And isn't it true that it has passed the bar?
Yeah, in some states they actually ran it through and it did pass the bar. Yes. And then in other states it failed, and sometimes it can pass the MBE and sometimes it can't. Those were kind of funny to read. Yeah, it is fun to see if it can pass or fail in each state. And of course, as you see, I mean, it's generating different things each time we're doing it. So some days maybe it has better days where it's just like me, where I'm more on tune with getting the analysis correct. So I really liked how when I was able to feed it the facts and then the actual case law myself, it was able to provide a great starting point for me to then draft from. It saves a little bit of time in putting it together, because now it's a lot easier to start with something on screen and then tweak and adjust, even if you're changing every single word, as opposed to starting with a blank screen typically. And then I wanted to revise this. There we go. Reverse to assert that Laura was not obligated to perform, because it doesn't have the right tone. And so I have to scroll down again. Oh, and another key feature is especially if you're using copy and paste, if you hold down Shift and hit Enter, that's when it will go to the next line and you can put more information in. Otherwise, if you just hit Enter, it will start generating the response. Okay, and so then I think this tone gives it a little bit better for me to start with, because it knew now who my client was and it could give me a little bit more. So what we're seeing in this new world is businesses are popping up. You can now buy, I mean, I constantly get ads for buying 100 social media prompts for ChatGPT. You can train it with technology and then sell the layered information. We're starting to see a lot of businesses pop up that are doing just this. So essentially, they're just creating these templates. I mean, very thoroughly creating them. It might have taken them, many, many days or months to put together really strong templates and teachings of the robot, the information. But then it's, and then they can even wire it to their own website and teach it, and they're selling you this additional information. One example of that, I just did a demo last week on, is Spell Book. That's a neat one. It's designed for contracts. They're tweaking it so that it can also be used for motions too, but it was really fascinating to see that you can put in a contract and it'll analyze it, or you can have it draft the initial of a contract, you give it the information, and it's very thorough in its understanding and depth of knowledge on the wording of contracts. Or you can highlight a section and say, give me alternatives to this that are more buyer friendly, seller friendly, whoever your client happens to be. You can also ask it which of these clauses are really negative for the seller. And it'll highlight those and say, these are much more buyer friendly, or that sort of thing. And so that's a neat program called Spell Book that I just did the demo for. I haven't had a chance to play with it yet because I just did the demo Thursday of last week, which I need to hurry up because I only get a 7-day free trial, and then it charges you, I forget, it was around $200, I think, per month for it. So if you're a contract lawyer, it would probably be very useful. There's also other components coming up. I'll do a couple shout outs to people that are doing some neat things that I'm seeing. We've got Jennifer Duclair has an ebook on her website of how to make the tone of ChatGPT sound like your voice. That was an interesting read, and you put in a number of things that you've written and it analyzes how you write and kind of makes it into a formula. And then you can take that formula and apply it to emails or any of your draftings or all that, and it'll make it sound more like you. So that was a neat way of using the computer to make things sound more like yourself that I hadn't thought of. Caroline Elephant, runs My Shingle. She has starting up a law firm AI Accelerator. So she's the guru of, if you're starting a solo practice, and she's talking about how you use AI for that. Case Crafter is a neat one. I've got to play with the beta version of that a little bit, and it's still in beta version, but it's expected to come out this summer. Aaron's doing that, and that's going to help you write the motions. He does more breach of contract, construction law in Texas, and it's geared more towards writing litigation motions and draftings that relate to that. It's interesting to watch. Also the complaints and answers and that kind of thing. So the biggest predictions that I have, see if I can put this over here, right here. Customer service jobs are going to be 99% bots. They already are heading in that direction, and people for the most part don't want to do those jobs anyway. But there's different things you could do. It's called a web scraper. So you can create a web scraper for your own personal website, and it'll take all the data that's on your website and store that information in the brain of this robot. And then when people type in questions on the little chat box, it will use that knowledge to answer their questions. You can add in other information to it that are maybe not so readily apparent on your website, and really train that bot to answer the questions as if it were an actual person. So some jobs are going to be significantly reduced by this product, especially as it continues to grow. But as we saw, there's so many businesses popping up from it as well. So while it's sure, doom and gloom where robots are taking away jobs, there's also a significant amount of neat businesses that are popping up from it, and it's creating jobs. Now, what I think I would keep in mind, more law firms will move towards a combination of hourly and flat rate model. I do see that as being true because of this technology. Whereas before, say it would take you 2 hours to do, maybe 3 hours to do a solid whatever, be it a complaint, discovery response. Using this technology, it'll cut your time in half potentially, or even more so. So the way to make sure that your compensation remains intact is to switch in part or completely to flat rate models. I'm seeing a lot, heavily family law attorneys that are really automated are using more of the flat rate component to it. And you can always do a mix. We just have to get more of these judges on board with that, because some jurisdictions are, of course, extremely anti-flat rate. So, it'll take the attorneys really pushing and showing the need. And then you want to look at any technology that you're currently using for your law firm to see what is it doing? Is it moving forward, or is it staying stagnant? Because if it's staying stagnant, it's not going to be the right technology for you in the next 2-3 years, maybe even sooner. You want to see that that they're creating more of the functionality using this same. And then the last thing that I thought was kind of fun to do is tell me all the things that see, I always spell it wrong. I always say it wrong. ChatGPT can do for a law firm. Although even if I spelled it wrong, it would have done it just fine. So I do think the funny thing that it says is legal research is the first thing. It can give you legal research, and it can be right sometimes, and it can be wrong sometimes. So you just want to be cognizant of that. I was working on something I'd never worked on before in a state I don't do a lot of work for. And so I asked it about California law in that realm, and it actually gave me the right statute. I was then able to look up the statute and get more information on it on my own, but it's a little better than Google. So if you're starting off and looking at something that you're not familiar with, it's very common for attorneys to go Google first just to get a rough idea. This is a little better than Google in most cases, I would say, but it's comparable. It's not comparable to Lexis or Westlaw.
Well, this is great. We have just a few minutes left, and we had a couple of unanswered questions in the chat. So I am going to go ahead and conclude the recording so you can ask any questions that you have, and please feel welcome to stay after we are done if you continue to have questions for Lindsay or want to discuss things with one another, but we will conclude the recording now. Thank you very much for tuning in to this Amicable Divorce Network presentation. If you are a family law attorney interested in the Amicable Divorce Network, we are the only organization in the entire world that vets professionals for being experienced, resolution focused, and engaging in fair billing practices. And we have a sophisticated online technology platform and out-of-court process to help parties divorce efficiently and well. And so if you're interested in that, you can head over to our website and learn more. Otherwise, thank you so much for tuning in today, and check out our calendar for other programs like this that we have coming up that are open to the public.